This is Atomic Biscuits, and I'm your host, BACFA. Hello, friends from around the world. This is Atomic Biscuits 2024-0908, Who's War? I'm going to start out with nypost.com. That's the New York Post. FBI raids New York City homes of two top Mayor Adams aides, Sheena Wright and Phil Banks. This was published on September 5th. FBI agents raided the homes of two top aides to Mayor Eric Adams, Phil Banks and Sheena Wright, early Wednesday, law enforcement sources confirmed. The raids, first reported by The City, unfolded simultaneously about 5 a.m. at Wright's elegant West 143rd Street home in Harlem and Banks' Queens home, according to the sources. An FBI spokesperson declined to comment to the Post on Thursday, but did not deny that federal agents visited both addresses. Sheena Wright is the first deputy mayor and longtime ally of Mayor Eric Adams. Schools Chancellor David Banks leaving his house that was raided by federal investigators on September 5, 2024. Banks was not the subject of the raid. Sheena Wright and David Banks have been in a long-term relationship and live in the same Harlem home. Banks did not answer any questions from the media about the raid on his partner, Sheena Wright. The law enforcement action marks a jaw-dropping escalation in the federal investigations swirling around Adams. The raid's precise purpose remained unclear Thursday, but a source with knowledge of the probe said investigators have been trying to flip someone close to Adams who has not been accused of wrongdoing. Wright, as the city's first deputy mayor, is the closest Adams aide to have her home raided by the feds. Banks, a longtime Adams ally, serves as his deputy mayor for public safety. Adams has now seen federal agents search the properties of 5 allies, including his top campaign fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, amid allegations of a kickback scheme involving City Hall and the Turkish government. A source familiar with the matter told the Post the raids did not appear to be related to the Turkey investigation. His Honor himself has previously been slapped with a grand jury subpoena, as were City Hall officials and his campaign in July, by federal prosecutors digging into his 2021 election fundraising. He also had his electronic devices seized as part of the investigation. Adams has repeatedly denied wrongdoing. Investigators have not indicated to us the mayor or his staff are targets of any investigation, said City Hall Chief Counsel Lisa Zornberg in a statement. As a former member of law enforcement, the mayor has repeatedly made clear that all members of his team need to follow the law. Representatives for Adams' campaign did not respond to requests for comment. Wright has been in a long-term relationship with Schools Chancellor David Banks, and they were rumored to have married in secret last year. Banks is the brother of Phil Banks, who himself was named by the feds as an unindicted co-conspirator in a sweeping federal police corruption case years ago. David Banks, when spotted Thursday leaving the Harlem home he shares with Wright, by the Post, dodged questions about the raid. Again, that's over at nypost.com. Also over at the New York Post, Trump commits to Elon Musk pitched Government Efficiency Commission. Former President Donald Trump committed Thursday to adopting a Government Efficiency Commission proposed last month by Elon Musk, saying America's richest man is welcome to chair the panel. At the suggestion of Elon Musk, who is giving me his complete and total endorsement, I will create a Government Efficiency Commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms, Trump told the Economic Club of New York. Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. The Republican presidential nominee, 78, added, "If he has time, he'll be a good one to do it, but he's agreed to do it." Trump initially embraced the idea in an interview with the South Africa-born CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, which was streamed on Musk-owned X, August 12th. "I think we need a government efficiency commission to say, like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible? We need to live within our means," Musk, 53, said in that conversation. "I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at things and just ensures that the taxpayer's hard-earned money, is spent in a good way. I'd be happy to help out on such a commission." Trump responded that "I'd love it," and added that "I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts." The ex-president said that his own ideas for shrinking the government included closing up the Department of Education and moving the education back to the states. The national debt soared by almost $8 trillion to $27.75 trillion during Trump's term of office, including final year emergency spending during the COVID-19 pandemic. Under Biden, the national debt has jumped more than $7.5 trillion to $35.3 trillion. Trump told the country's business elite that a victory by his Democratic rival would turn the United States into Venezuela on steroids, one day after Harris outlined her own vision for higher taxes on investment income. The Republican said that he would try to decrease the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15% for domestic manufacturers if he retakes the White House, after dropping it from 39% through his 2017 tax cuts legislation. Harris has proposed raising the top corporate tax rate to 28% while increasing capital gains taxes on annual profits exceeding $1 million from 20% to 28%. The Democrat did not explicitly mention during her tax policy speech Wednesday whether she still supports plans to tax unrealized capital gains, but her reference to a billionaire minimum tax used the same terminology as has been applied in the past. Unbelievably, she will seek a tax on unrealized capital gains, Trump said Thursday. "If you happen to have a lot of wealth but no cash, you're a lot of trouble with these policies, especially the tax on unrealized capital gains. Companies and innovation would flee from America to other countries, venture capital markets would disappear, the stock market would be annihilated, and senior pensions would totally go up in smoke." Another distinction between the candidates, Trump doubled down on plans to increase tariffs on foreign goods, a threat he repeatedly used as a bargaining tactic as president before ultimately following through with enacting tariffs on many Chinese goods, as well as steel and aluminum from most countries. "Smart tariffs will not create inflation. They will combat inflation," Trump said. "I had almost no inflation, and I had the highest tariffs that anyone's seen, and they were going a lot higher. Foreign nations will pay us hundreds of billions of dollars, reducing the deficit and driving inflation down." During a question and answer session, Trump contended, "I stopped wars with the threat of tariffs." Harris has alleged that the former president's tariff plan would amount to a national sales tax on consumers. Both Trump and Harris are proposing new tax write-offs, with the Democrat pitching a deduction for business startup expenses from $5,000 to $50,000, and Trump vowing to allow tax perks for manufacturing investments and research and development. Trump has additionally proposed eliminating federal income taxes on tipped income and Social Security payments, and said he's looking at potential legislation to reduce child care costs. The ex-president jeered Harris for adopting his "no tax on tips" pledge. "We will have no tax on tips," something which they copied 4 weeks after I said it. "She got up and said no tax on tips," Trump said. "We're going to send her a MAGA cap sometime in the week, but we also know she doesn't mean it." Again, that's over at the New York Post. This business about taxing unrealized gains is kind of insane. People sock away lots of value in stocks and in bonds and in municipals, all kinds of investments that they plan to invest now, wait for it to grow, and then cash out on the growth. if the government taxes it as it grows, people will not put their money there anymore. And that will ruin all kinds of investment strategies, long term and short. Also, it doesn't seem right that the government would tax something that hasn't occurred yet. You haven't taken the value out. I mean, if you put $50,000 into a house and it doesn't change in value, they would not tax you. If it changes and goes up in value, they would tax you. If it changes in value by going down, are they going to give you a refund? That doesn't make sense. You haven't sold the house yet. The taxing happens when the transaction occurs. So this new idea that they're going to tax you as the value increases, and this is on top of, here in the States, real estate is taxed at the county level already, even though you own it, just because you have it every year. And that typically funds schools and other social services, as well as regular consumption taxing going towards schools and other services like road paving. At least that's the way it works here in Georgia. So, like you find with most Democrats, if it moves, tax it. That's their philosophy. If you're doing something, tax it. Tax it every possible way, coming and going. People are going to be looking for ways to retain value, and they will avoid those taxes, and their behavior will change. Kamala thinks that people won't change their habits, they won't change their strategies, and that the government will just simply collect money. And that's just not how human behavior works. The other thing I wanted to share too is about tariffs. Before there was an income tax in the United States, the government ran on tariffs and taxes on imported goods. So by including those tariffs, you start to fund government. By reducing the size of government, you start to pay for government, and then you don't have all this ridiculous unallocated expense that Elon Musk would go looking for. And I wonder how many black ops, how many black projects, how many dark money things of laundering are going on in the deep state that he would want to crack open. And it wouldn't just be NASA, it would be all kinds of programs and government spending. In the wake of Chevron decision, having someone going through and auditing would be a really good idea. If you haven't heard of it, I encourage you to have a look at Mark Levin's The Freedom Amendments, I believe it's called. And those ideas in there about how to hold the federal government accountable are wonderful ideas that we can now utilize in the wake of Chevron. Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's the Liberty Amendments by Mark Levin. I used the wrong title in the last story. Over at Stripes.com, that's Stars and Stripes, a military outlet, Navy fires commander of destroyer now in Middle East to counter attacks from Iran-backed militants. The Navy on Friday fired the commander of a guided missile destroyer that is part of an aircraft carrier strike group deployed in the Middle East to counter attacks on shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf by Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. Commander Cameron Yaste was relieved of his duties as commanding officer of the USS John S. McCain, an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer now operating in the Gulf of Oman. Rear Admiral Christopher Alexander, commander of the USS Theodore Roosevelt Carrier Strike Group, took the action citing a loss of confidence to command the guided missile destroyer. Loss of confidence is a vague phrase often used throughout the U.S. military to describe the removal of a commanding officer from his or her post without providing a clear explanation. The causes for past removals of Navy commanders for lack of confidence have ranged from ineffective leadership, mistreatment of crew members, and poor behavior off duty, such as drinking with subordinates or a driving under the influence arrest. Alexander announced Captain Allison Christie, Deputy Commodore of Destroyer Squadron 21, has temporarily assumed command of the destroyer. There is no impact on the ship's mission or schedule due to the relief, the Navy said in a statement. Yaste assumed command of the John S. McCain in October 2023. The Navy said he will return to Naval Station Everett, Washington, to take up temporary administrative duties. Yates was photographed earlier this year firing an M4 rifle, which some service members pointed out had the optical sight mounted backward. The USS John S. McCain is unique in that it is named after three naval officers from the same family. John S. McCain Sr. was an admiral and a Navy aircraft carrier commander in World War II. John S. McCain Jr. was an influential Navy admiral during the Vietnam War era. John S. McCain III was a naval aviator who was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam and went on to become a U.S. Senator from Arizona and a Republican presidential candidate. You remember, good old Wet Start McCain, also known as McStain. Anyway, that's over at Stripes.com. Brown love is the most beautiful kind. Breaking all 90 pages of Nashville transgender shooter Audrey Hale manifesto released. Of course, this happens right as another big school shooting occurs here in the state of Georgia. I don't know if they just decided it would be a good dovetail story, or if they're trying to sort of sneak it in while they've got keywords hijacked as another three-letter agency wind-up toy goes on a rampage. All 90 pages of Nashville transgender shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto was released by the Tennessee Star on Tuesday, and there's a download link here. Contents from the manifesto of Covenant School shooter Audrey Elizabeth Hale, a biological female who identified as a transgender male at the time of her horrific attack on March 23, 2023, was leaked earlier this year. Star News Digital Media, which owns and operates the Star, and the publication's editor-in-chief, Michael Patrick Leahy, are currently plaintiffs in lawsuits seeking to compel the Metro Nashville Police Department, the MNPD, and the FBI to release Hale's writings, including those referred to as a manifesto. The Tennessee Star previously confirmed that it had obtained nearly 4 pages of Hale's writings from a source familiar with the investigation. The March 11, 2023 entry revealed her intense desire to possess a penis. Hale's diary entry begins with the title, My Imaginary Penis, and includes a crude drawing. My penis exists in my head. I swear to God, I'm a male, wrote Hale in the diary. She then expressed her desire to have a penis for heterosexual intercourse, according to the Tennessee Star. After threats of imprisonment, the Tennessee Star published all 90 pages of Audrey Hale's manifesto. Excerpts from Audrey Hale's manifesto. If God won't give me a boy body in heaven, then Jesus is a faggot. I can't be happy. I am meant to die. No brown girls, no love. Brown love is the most beautiful kind. The Tennessee Star reported Hale, who was 28 years old when she died, was born a biological female but identified as a transgender male at the time of her attack. She often signed journal entries using the name Aiden. The octagonal symbol first appears on the journal's cover, but within its pages the distinctive shape appears on the first page opposite where the killer wrote, "Why does my brain not work right? 'Cause I was born wrong." Hale's symbol appears throughout the journal, including an undated entry apparently written in mid-March of 2023 when the killer wrote about the attack she planned later that month. Soon I will leave this world. You and your friends will be just fine. Does it even matter if I'm alive? Hale later added the octagonal symbol, and above it wrote, "No regrets" by the gun. The Tennessee Star legally obtained Audrey Hale's manifesto/journal and defended their right to publish the contents. Quote, "Our reporting on the Covenant Killer investigation has served the public interest," Michael Patrick Leahy, the editor-in-chief of the Star, said on Tuesday. "We legally obtained writings by Audrey Elizabeth Hale, MNPD investigation documents, and MNPD crime scene photos from a source familiar with the MNPD investigation in June 2024. These documents and photos have helped us inform the public about the underlying reasons for this heinous attack and have helped drive the public discussion of what should be done to prevent such acts of violence in the future. we have documented a massive failure of the mental health system as a root cause of Hale's reprehensible actions, Leahy added. In a statement released on Tuesday, Leahy said, "We have a First Amendment right to publish these documents from the moment we legally obtained them in June 2024. We legally obtained this journal, which we refer to as the Covenant Killers 2023 Journal, to distinguish it from the many journals written by Hale prior to 2023 in early June of 2024 from a source familiar with the MNPD investigation. We believe it to be authentic. In addition to our belief, the journal was confirmed as authentic in court by a Metro Nashville government lawyer in attendance at a June 2024 court hearing and in a court filing submitted on June 14, 2024 by MNPD Lieutenant Alfredo Olivado. On April 24, 2023, in compliance with the Tennessee Public Records Act, we formally requested of MNPD, a department within the Metro National Davidson County government, that they release all of the writings of Audrey Elizabeth Hale that they had obtained as part of their investigation into the March 27, 2023 murders. Metro Nashville government denied that request one day later on April 25, 2023, and in May 2023 we filed suit against Metro Nashville government in Davidson County, Tennessee, Chancery Court to obtain those writings as provided for by the Tennessee Public Records Act. The case was assigned to Judge Aisha Miles. In this matter, we are well represented by America First Legal and their outstanding local counsel, Nick Berry. In May 2023, MNPD provided Judge Miles with all of Hale's writings obtained through their investigation for her in-camera review. On July 4, 2024, Judge Miles released her decision in the case, which was to deny our request on two grounds. One, MNPD's assertion that they were conducting an ongoing investigation into the murders was a statutory exception to the Tennessee Public Records Act, which would have allowed our request, and two, the assertion of ownership of Hale's writings and a subsequent copyright claim stemming from that purported ownership by an intervening group creating a non-statutory exception to the Tennessee Public Records Act. On July 31, 2024, we appealed the trial court's ruling to the Tennessee Court of Appeals. We expect to win our appeal. Earlier this year, Michael Patrick Lay vowed to continue to exercise his First Amendment rights after a judge threatened to hold him in contempt for publishing news stories on Audrey Hale's manifesto.
We get for $10. Everything you want. Everything.
God help us, just listen to this.
When I was an extremist, Islamist, fundamentalist, I would only vote left.
Why is that?
I saw them as very stupid. I would fear the conservatives because they come with principle. That's not someone they can brainwash. But the left, I know they have no values and no principles to begin with. I dare you to find one Islamic extremist that votes for Donald Trump. Never do it. They'd give their vote to the leftist who wants to run around in pride parades. And Islamic extremists are against gays and homosexuals and transgenders, but they want the left to go and get busy with that. And Omar, she's fighting for abortion rights. My body, my choice. Yes, go do that. Go do it. But would she have an abortion? Never. Would she kill a Muslim in her stomach? Never.
What is the fundamentalist and jihadi agenda for America?
The future of America has to be Muslim.
There's a whole bunch of folks in the Valley who I've been in touch with in the past week on this unrealized tax issue, gain issue, and where we've talked about, those who are taking loans against their unrealized stock, et cetera, et cetera. And then they say, well, if you start to tax that, we won't be able to make investments in startups. We won't be able to give money over to venture capitalists and private equity folks and other things like that. What's your feedback to that distinction? Because I wonder, once there's a critique of one, then of one policy, and you get rid of that policy, then of course it moves to the critique of the next version of it.
Well, of course, but okay. So what I told him was, if you tax unrealized gains, you're going to kill the stock market. right?
Breaking news. The Biden administration taking a series of actions to target what they allege are attempts by Russian-backed actors to manipulate public opinion here in the U.S. ahead of the presidential election, according to two senior U.S. officials. Joining us now is NBC's Ken Delanian. Ken, what more have we learned?
Jose, this is being described by our sources as a whole-of-government action designed to target Russian propaganda and disinformation aimed at interfering in the 2024 election. It is said to include sanctions by the Treasury Department, law enforcement action by the Justice Department, and one of the focuses is on RT, formerly known as Russia Today, that network of Russian government-funded English-language websites and television platforms that was flagged all the way back in 2017 by the U.S. intelligence community as a vehicle for Russian disinformation and election interference. And at that time, the Justice Department required RT to register as a foreign agent. It remains to be seen exactly what actions the U.S. will take against RT today, but this does appear to represent an escalation in the efforts to try to purge the system of Russian propaganda and disinformation. What's interesting is that, look, the U.S. has been saying all along that not only Russia, but Iran and China, but particularly Russia, has been consistently trying to manipulate American public opinion with disinformation on social media platforms, use of fake accounts, and through RT, through its state-sponsored platforms, as they did in 2016. The difference now is that there are mechanisms in place, particularly on the social media platforms, to try to stop and flag fake accounts before the influence operations spread too widely. So it remains to be seen what impact this Russian disinformation is having. But nonetheless, this is a stance by the Biden administration to say, if you're violating U.S. laws and policies, we're going to come after you. And Attorney General Merrick Garland is expected to chair a meeting of the government's election task force today, this afternoon, with FBI Director Chris Wray and other officials, and he may have public comments to make about this effort at that time.
A justice system in chaos, prisons dangerously full. And so next week, thousands of prisoners will get out early after serving 40% of their sentence under new emergency measures to free up space. But there are concerns from some inside this system about who will get to go free.
When this was announced a few days after the general election, there was essentially an admission from the government that bringing forward the release date for thousands of prisoners won't be popular. It's unpalatable, but we were told also unavoidable because of the scale of the crisis. It was said there'll be checks and safeguards, that it won't apply to everyone in prison, and crucially, we were told, sex offences will be excluded from the scheme.
Obviously, we've put in place a framework to ensure that we don't release those who create the greatest risk.
There will be exclusions. Sentences for sexual and serious violent offences will remain at 50%.
Now, though, a whistleblower working inside the probation service has told this programme about what he sees as a loophole. And he says it means some people who were jailed for sex offences will be released from prison early under this scheme.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Speaking anonymously, what we can say is he's a probation officer in the north of England. He told us about the case of a sex offender considered high risk who will soon be released 4 months early under the new scheme.
So there's things we're putting in place, but the clock's ticking all the time.
And when he checked the rules, he realised that case won't be a one-off.
We've been told repeatedly that sex offenders won't be released early under this.
Well, indeed, it's a definite loophole to me. It doesn't fit with justice. It certainly doesn't fit with victim rights.
What he calls a loophole, although the MOJ refutes that description, will affect some prisoners serving time for crimes excluded from the early release scheme, like sexual offences, if they were also sentenced for another offence that does qualify, like theft or common assault. Complicated, yes, and piling more pressure on probation. Exclusive data obtained by Channel 4 News reveals for 18 consecutive months to this summer, the probation service was consistently working at around 120% capacity.
The probation service is already facing huge pressure, and I've described the efforts going on by hard-pressed probation officers as heroic. I think it's important to understand that Parliament has made the regulations out on how this works. The government has explained that this is not something they necessarily would have wanted to do. They had no choice but to implement this scheme.
The Ministry of Justice says it inherited a justice system in crisis, and without the early release scheme, there'd be no room to lock up dangerous criminals. For some, though, there's a concern the pressure will just shift to another part of the system.
That's exactly right. I'm told that actually Homeland Security agents were pulled off of child exploitation cases, child endangerment cases, the stuff they normally do. They don't normally do protective detail work at all. They were pulled off those cases, said, here, you're going to go guard the former president of the United States. Watch this webinar. Oops, it doesn't really work. Oh, that's all right. Go out into the field anyway. Jesse, this is a nightmare. And we still have no answers. The only reason we know this stuff is because of whistleblowers. It's outrageous.
That is absolutely.
I have a right to work here.
He has a right.
I have a right to be here. And
You're
not
arresting him.
to tell students they need to tell puberty blockers.
You're arresting him because he won't endorse transgender ideology. Shame upon you.
You're at Wilson's Hospital School. I was the senior clerk, teacher.
And that's
been arrested for not accepting transgenderism.
Nor should I. And I'm not going to turn my back on my duty to my students.
I'm not going to turn back on my duty.
No, you don't have a duty to do what's wrong.
No, you never
and to bring me before the court. To bring me before the court. To bring me before the court.
This is a disgrace.
Children are being taught in telling young boy.
Surgery.
Yes, surgery, mutilation.
Yes.
Mutilation.
It's a suicide.
Mutilation.
Mutilation. An absolute disgrace.
You're telling a boy that he's gender neutral. Yeah, that he has to take chemicals. That he has to take chemicals. That he has to take chemicals.
Be heavy-handed.
No, that he has to take chemicals.
Not going to be heavy-handed.
He has broken no law. Shame upon you. Shame upon you, Garvey. Shame upon you. You've no right to do what you're doing.
This is correct.
This is an innocent teacher, a Christian man. Shame upon you, Garvey Shiakona. Mr. Burke has broken no law. He has broken no law.
I have a right to my job. I have a right to work here.
He has a right.
I have a right to be here. And
You're arresting
not
him.
to tell students they need to tell puberty blockers.
You're arresting him because he won't endorse transgender ideology. Shame upon you.
Shame on you. Shame on you.
Shame on you, man. Shame.
You've just seen what happened there. We're here at Wilson's Hospital School in Multifarnham.
A Rutherford County family has put their lives on pause for 6 weeks after a tragic accident. The Silvermans say their son collapsed and went into cardiac arrest back in July with no prior health issues. Steve Mailing spoke with the parents about what the doctors have told them.
Sammy Silverman should be in the 8th grade right now at Blackman Middle School. Instead, for the past 6 weeks, he and his parents have been here at the Children's Hospital in Nashville, and doctors still don't know how the incident that put him here happened. He was as active as you could get at 12 years old. His parents say Sammy Silverman played soccer and had no health issues.
And you never think, hey, that's going to happen to my kid. And when it does.
Sammy came down with a stomach bug back in July. Nearly 2 days after, his parents say he started to feel better. That was until Sammy had a heart attack at 12 years old. His dad, Adam, performed CPR until medics arrived. Medics told his parents they had to revive him 4 times en route to the hospital.
It's so frustrating. He was a happy, healthy 12-year-old boy.
He goes into sudden cardiac arrest?
Yeah.
Adam and Jeanette Silverman say the most frustrating part is that doctors are as puzzled as they are.
I don't know why. My son is in this position.
Sammy was transferred to Vanderbilt, where a once grim prognosis has turned into miraculous progress. Since his hospitalization, Jeanette had to quit her job, the only source of income since her husband's stroke. Still, each day, they take an Uber from Murfreesboro to Nashville to be with their son.
You know, we're at home with our 3 girls, and it's like, there's a part of our family that's not there because he's not with us. And however he is, I just want him with us.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And he will be.
Yeah.
Sammy, who was once on life support, is now breathing on his own.
And he took his first breath by himself. It was amazing. And I knew that day that he was going to be okay.
He was going to get through that.
Yeah.
6 weeks from an inexplicable incident, they're holding together. The road to recovery runs through Atlanta, but they're willing to do whatever they can to get Sammy back home.
My family's everything. And that's family, even got much.
For WSMV4, I'm Steve Bailey.
Over at theblaze.com, they have the story Tim Walz hit with House subpoena for records on massive alleged $250 million pandemic fraud. Seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth, this guy, after becoming Kamala Harris's VP pick. 5 people have been convicted and another 65 are charged in scheme that stole money intended to feed poor children. Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz was subpoenaed for records related to a $250 million alleged fraud scheme during the pandemic. The massive fraud scheme involved funds being paid out to a nonprofit called Feeding Our Future that claimed to be set up to help feed poor children in Minnesota, but instead apparently stole millions to enrich the plotters. House Education and Workforce Committee Chair Virginia Foxx, Republican from North Carolina, says that Walz, who is the governor of Minnesota, was unresponsive to a request for information about the alleged scam. Although some documents have been produced for the committee, Foxx says they were not produced in a timely manner, nor did they answer her questions about Walz's oversight of the program. A U.S. attorney charged 70 people in relation to the scam in 2022, and to date, 5 individuals have been convicted of fraud. Others are awaiting trial on charges including bribery, wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering. Officials say the stolen money was used to buy real estate, luxury cars, and other illegal purchases. An audit found that Minnesota's Department of Education failed to catch warning signs of fraud from the nonprofit and didn't force organizers to meet program requirements. After MDE, under Governor Walz failed to respond to previous attempts by the committee to garner information necessary to uncover how the governor and the USDA allowed such fraud to occur, the committee today is proceeding with a subpoena to compel responses, wrote Fox. This was an appalling abuse of a federal COVID-era program, read a statement from Walz's spokesperson to Axios. The Axios report said that some Republicans are uneasy about the subpoena because of the possibility of political backlash from the appearance of political motivation. Again, that's over at theblaze.com. RedState.com has the story Flip-Flopping Kamala Harris using Trump border wall and campaign ads. Even CNN shreds her hypocrisy. It's a story by Bob Hogue over at RedState.com. Hypocrisy is a word that comes quickly to mind when speaking about Kamala Harris. Lately, she became the Democrat presidential nominee. She's been flipping and flopping like a goldfish who accidentally jumped out of its bowl on issues ranging from taxes to economic measures to just about everything else. Nowhere has this been more evident than on the border crisis, where the vice president has taken to releasing tough-talking campaign ads about what a strong leader she'd be in stopping the flow of illegal immigration, despite the fact that under the Biden-Harris administration, illegal aliens have snuck in at historically unprecedented rates, as Joe and Kamala seem to have issued them an open invitation. It's all too much for even the leftist network CNN and anchor Aaron Burnett, who can usually be relied on to faithfully cheerlead for the Democrat Party and attack Republicans over the flimsiest of allegations. But there she was Wednesday, exposing Kamala's utter shamelessness in using photos of Donald Trump's border wall in campaign advertisements, despite the fact that she was a fierce critic of those same walls and savaged the former president over them at the time. A CNN segment reported Wednesday on how Vice President Kamala Harris is using imagery of former President Trump's border wall after condemning it for years as useless and un-American. During CNN's Aaron Burnett Out Front, host Aaron Burnett spoke to CNN's K-File senior editor Andrew Kaczynski about how Harris's past comments about Trump's border wall are coming back to haunt her. Kaczynski found 50 instances of Harris slamming Trump's border wall, but now her campaign is featuring the border wall in ads. What's so odd about this story is that it's CNN, of all networks, reporting on the hypocrisy. Normally, they do everything in their power to sweep it under the rug. An incredulous Burnett asked about her newest ads. She's using his wall that he built to say, look at what I did. Harris is proving daily that she's a principle-free wannabe dictator who will say virtually anything and then reverse herself on it later if her team believes it enhances her chances. When you're a Democrat politician and even the biased Aaron Burnett is calling you out, you know you're doing badly. This is over at redstate.com. Breitbart.com has this story. Vladimir Putin endorses Kamala Harris for president, praises her infectious laugh. Do you think he's trolling her or us or what exactly is happening here? Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed his support for Vice President Kamala Harris at a press conference on Thursday, saying he prefers her as the next U.S. president because he wants the Biden administration to continue and because she laughs so expressively and infectiously. Putin made his remarks with tongue-in-cheek at the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok. He was ostensibly mocking the very idea Russia has a preference in the U.S. election or would interfere in American politics. I told you our favorite, if you can call it that, was the current president, Mr. Biden. He was removed from the race, but he recommended all his supporters to support Ms. Harris, so we will do the same. We will support her, Putin said. She laughs so expressively and infectiously that it means that everything is fine with her, he said. Putin said he would prefer not to see former President Donald Trump return to the White House because he introduced such a number of restrictions and sanctions against Russia that no president has ever introduced before. If Ms. Harris is doing well, then maybe she will refrain from actions of this kind, he suggested. Ultimately, the choice is up to the American people, and we will respect that choice. As for the favorites, it's not up to us to determine that. It is, after all, the choice of the American people, he added. U.S. media outlets like Bloomberg News rushed to assure their readers Putin really doesn't favor Harris for president. There's an inset here that reads, Putin's comments effectively amounted to presidential trolling a day after the Biden administration announced that Russia-backed entities had pursued a years-long operation to meddle in the U.S. election and broadly boost the Kremlin's interests. The FBI cited internal planning documents from one of the entities saying it was in Russia's interest to ensure that Donald Trump or another Republican candidate won the White House. But they also reflect that Kremlin's view that with relations at their lowest in decades over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, there's little prospect for improvement whomever wins the U.S. presidency. Putin said Biden was predictable when he told state television in February that he'd prefer him over Trump in the White House. Newsweek fired up its Wayback Machine and frantically twisted the dials to July to dredge up a comment from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov that suggested Russia might not be so thrilled to see Harris take over the Oval Office. Amusingly, what Peskov was actually saying was that Harris is such a non-entity with such an inert record of accomplishments as vice president that her Russia policy as president would be difficult to predict. At the moment, we cannot assess the potential candidacy of Ms. Harris from the point of view of our bilateral relations because so far her contribution to our bilateral relations has not been noticed, Peskov said in July. There were statements that were replete with rhetoric quite unfriendly toward our country, but her actions in relations to bilateral relations come under neither a plus nor a minus sign, he said. Reuters made a point of noting that both Putin and the moderator of the Eastern Economic Forum were smiling when he talked about Harris. Okay. Sure. Okay. Next. While not much to read, there's a lot to see over at arstechnica.com on this that they posted. Dragon's Fire. Ukrainian drones now spray 2,500 degree C thermite streams right into Russian trenches. Mechanical dragons deliver fire on command. Wars of necessity spawn weapons innovation as each side tries to counter the other's tactics and punch through defenses. For instance, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine has made drone warfare real, both sides have developed ways to bring down drones more easily. One recent Ukrainian innovation has been building counter-drone ramming drones that literally knock Russian drones from the sky. In the case of trench warfare that currently dominates the Russian invasion of eastern Ukraine, the Ukrainians have another new tactic: Dragon's Fire, delivered by drone. Videos have begun to circulate on Telegram and X this week from Ukrainian units showing their new weapon. You can see 3 of them in the link below. The videos each show a drone moving deliberately along a trench line as it releases a continuous stream of incendiary material, which often starts fires on the ground below and ignites nearby ammunition. The drone type is allegedly called Dragon and is said to feature thermite, a mixture of metal powder, usually aluminum, and metal oxide, in this case said to be iron. When a thermite mixture is ignited, it undergoes a redox reaction that releases an enormous amount of heat energy and can burn anywhere. It can get really, really hot. Wikipedia offers a nice description of the advantages of thermite. Quote, the products emerge as liquids due to the high temperatures reached up to 2,500 degrees Celsius, that's 4,532 degrees Fahrenheit, with iron oxide. Although the actual temperature reached depends on how quickly heat can escape to the surrounding environment. Thermite contains its own supply of oxygen and does not require an external source of air. Consequently, it cannot be smothered and may ignite in an environment given sufficient initial heat. It burns well while wet and cannot be easily extinguished with water, though enough water to remove sufficient heat may stop the reaction. Whether such weapons make any difference on the battlefield remains unclear, but the devices are a reminder of how much industrial and chemical engineering talent in Ukraine is currently being directed into new methods of destruction. Were translated, an X account that posts translations into English from Russian-speaking Telegram channels has just posted a Russian writer's thoughts about the new drones. The Dragon drone's effectiveness now looks much higher than in the initial videos, the writer says, adding that they're capable of burning out vegetation, grass, bushes, trees with foliage, in a short period of time. This will open up the enemy's view of camouflaged positions, which will deprive the defending units of property and ammunition, and the assault groups concentrated for the attack of the element of surprise. Again, that story and the video links to X and other places is over at Ars Technica, ARSTECHNICA.com. The Daily Caller over at dailycaller.com has this story: Brazilian judge who banned Twitter sought to censor average Joes simply for being conservative, docs say. Alexander de Moraes, the Brazilian Supreme Court justice who banned Twitter in Brazil, petitioned the government to block the social media accounts of everyday citizens for their political beliefs, according to screenshots of documents released Wednesday by Twitter. De Moraes petitioned the federal government to secretly block the accounts of 3 social media users, all of whom have under 2,000 Twitter followers, according to Andre File's Twitter account, which the website claims is an official affiliate. One of the screenshots appears to show 2 of the 3 accounts by Alexander File's Twitter account name listed. The accounts of the aforementioned citizens were followed by a small number of people, and their posts expressed only support for conservative views and politicians, Alexander Files wrote. Moraes was unable to identify a single illegal post by any of these individuals, much less a reason why their accounts should be blocked in their entirety. Most likely they were censored because Moraes disagreed with his political beliefs, the account's post read. De Moraes' request asked the government to fine the users 100,000 Brazilian reals daily if they violated the block, equivalent to $17,000 US at current exchange rates, according to the screenshots. In addition to blocking the users' Twitter accounts, Desmarais also flagged some of their YouTube and Instagram accounts, according to screenshots of the documents. The order is in addition to orders he made blocking the accounts of prominent journalists, media figures, and politicians who were critical of him, according to additional screenshots shared by Alexander Files. The files also detailed Desmarais' block of Brazilian Senator Marcos Ribeiro Duval, an act the account said was in direct violation of Brazilian law. Anyone who seeks to expose him or his accomplices in any way must be silenced in the name of democracy, the account wrote. The block, the account notes, is in violation of Articles 5 and 220 of the Brazilian Constitution. Duval called Fabio Alvarez Shore, the chief of Brazilian Federal Police, Desmarais' henchman, which Desmarais cited as a violation of Brazilians' human rights, the documents say. Alexander Files' release of the documents is the latest chapter in an ongoing saga of the judge's apparent conflict with Elon Musk's media company. In mid-August, Musk ceased Twitter's operations in Brazil. This came after Twitter accused Desmarais of threatening to jail Twitter's legal representative in the country after the company refused to comply with his censorship demands. The legal representative ultimately resigned over the alleged threat, Twitter's Global Affairs Department said. Then on Friday, Desmarais officially banned the entire platform in Brazil, citing the company's lack of a legal representative. He also froze the company's bank accounts, as well as the bank accounts of other Musk-owned company, the satellite operator Starlink. Brazil's Supreme Court upheld Desmarais' decision in a unanimous Monday decision, the court's website said, and the Associated Press reported. Yep, I think that if you look at this in parallels and see what's happening, you can apply that to other things going on in the world. And I think we're seeing more and more of this kind of archetypes, right? Whether it's distress in the streets and people waving flags, or finding them running the different peoples against each other, giving away things to those who don't deserve it while starving those who've earned it. This is the method, and this is the madness, and this is how they thin out the herd. Well, that's all the time we have for this week's Atomic Biscuits. I hope you have a wonderful week in the North Georgia area. Here where I am, the weather is starting to cool just enough for you to feel that summer is finally on its way out the door. Starting to see a few leaves starting to change. It's that time of year where it's time to get the car tuned up and go for a drive in the windy roads and the mountain passes during the autumn leaf changing season, and experience the cooler weather and babbling brooks with family and friends. Good food and good times are on the way. Doesn't mean that politics will get any less weird. We're going to have some strange things happen. We're going to have some strange attacks happen. We're going to have nuclear threats hanging over our heads. But it's always been this way. It's always been a lot of puffery. And we may be at war this time next week, or next year, or next decade. It doesn't mean that we can't inhale and enjoy the here and now. Keep your family close, keep your head on a swivel, and I'll see you on the next episode of Atomic Biscuits. So long, everyone.
Thanks for joining us for Atomic Biscuits. Tune in again next week for more news and music. Check out BACFA on Gab at BACFA, as well as BitChute, Rumble, D-Live and Odyssey. Check out LastScoutRadio.com for fun content. Listen to WBN 324 on radio stations around the world, on many streaming platforms, and World Broadcasting Network WBN 324.zil.